Okay, keyboard time. Not usually something I gave a whole lot of rat's ass about if you want to know the truth, but yeah, I've turned into a bit of a Keychron fanboy, which to be honest is, based on your guys' feedback on our previous Keychron videos, really some of the best bang for buck higher end keyboards. And I say higher end compared to like a lot of the other junk that's out there, but it's just like the top of the rabbit hole when you start to go down. So today we're gonna talk about the keyboard I've been using, how that's been, and we're gonna talk about the ones we're using on our test bench. But we just got in the Keychron Q6HE or Hall Effect keyboard, which really should be a lot like my K10, but that means there is no actual mechanical function to the switch. It's all magnetic for switches. Today's video is brought to you by the new, really super cool JSUSense Melty connector shirt, paying tribute to one of the best designs that's clearly ever existed. And if you don't like the Vaporwave colors, we've got our OG gray and red colors available now. So get yours by following the link in the description below.
Nice.
Ow, I have a thigh cramp. So the main keyboards I've been using both at home and here is the Q6. This is the full metal body. I did a video about this already. In fact, took it apart and showed you guys some of the modifications you can do to it, how it's fully hot swappable switches. Obviously it uses cherry style keycaps. These are just keycaps in a colorway I came up with from some Amazon keycap sets. The style keys that come stock, like this is the K10 right here. So this is a plastic bodied keyboard, whereas that one's a full metal body keyboard. So we'll talk about the K10 here real quick on the keycaps. So these are untouched. These are what came with the Keychron K10. These are SA style keys, which means they're taller, they're more concave, they got an angle to them, like so that they kind of lay flat depending on the angle of the keyboard. These are more standard style keycaps. I forget what these are called, I think more OEM. I like the shorter profile, the more squared edges than them being round. But more importantly, there's some major differences between these two, specifically in the construction. So for instance, let me weigh the K10 here. I'll tell you guys what the weight is, because I thought, I don't mind the heavy keyboard. It's just when I go to kind of move it out of the way or slide it out of the way, I often forget how heavy it is, and it takes some effort to actually move this stupid thing. So the K10 comes in at 1,500 kilograms. So it's actually not 1,500 kilograms. Wow, that would be a very heavy keyboard. 1,500 grams or 1.5 kilograms. How many pounds is 1,500 kilograms? Right, I got would have been 3,306 pounds, or basically a car. Put it into perspective. This is the K6 with the somewhat lighter keycaps, honestly, than what's on there. This one comes in at 2,078 grams. So you can see it's about 25% heavier. It's pretty heavy. And so I would assume the Q6HE is going to be about the same weight, because it's the exact same keyboard essentially with different key switch type. So let's talk about sound profile real quick. So the K10 uses it's not nearly as dampened, I guess you would call. So this is the sound. Spacebar, enter. It's not unpleasant at all versus mushy, nasty, regular membrane keyboards. They're all a linear switch. None of my switches are clicky. I don't like clicky switches, so there's no hump either. It's just a linear switch. That means it's the same feeling all the way down. There's no tactile hump where you feel like a clutch, like it goes over the hump. And there's no click, hearing the switch click in there. It doesn't sound bad until you listen to this one that I set up. This is very buttery. Am I doing it right, Nick? Is buttery the term?
It can be a term.
It can be a term? Yeah. Okay, it's very margarine-y. Yeah, I mean, compare these two. This is actually an amazing typing experience. But as we talked about, these are mechanical switches. So if we move over now to the Hall Effect, these, some of the best gaming game pads that you can get are Hall Effect. It means they're magnetic, right? It's just reading a magnet, and based on that magnetic force, will give an input into the control mechanism of whatever it is that the Hall Effect is attached to. So we can unbox this together. Quick start guide. They also do have Mac and, these are ANSI keyboards obviously, but they do have Mac and Windows layout. They come set up with Mac keys, which kind of bothers me because I have to take off the command key and all that stuff and the option key and all that and put on Alt and then the Windows key, but that's a minor thing. I would think they're selling more of these to PC folks than Mac, honestly, so I'm kind of surprised. Okay, so let's go ahead and weigh this guy. As you can see, this is the black one. This is essentially the same colorway that came with this one here, but obviously I switched the keys, as you can see, to a more purpley, bluey homage to my blue color blindness. So let's weigh this guy. 2186. So those switches are heavier, like I said. That's the only difference between these two keyboards. 2076 grams. Yeah, so it is about 100 grams heavier. Could be the keycap. Ooh. These are firmer. Like it's a heavier switch type than this one here. So this is what they call their, was it the Nebula Blue, I believe it was? Or Nebula Linear. Yeah, it's a Nebula Linear switch. They're Gatoron magnetics. So if you're wondering who the brand is, it's Gatoron. Yeah, the actuation force is less. It's like they get quieter as we go down the stack. So here's the J key, because that's the first letter of my name. Let's get closer. It's like they get quieter, quieter, quieter. I don't know what kind of damping mechanism is in here, but we'll probably open it up and take a look. So it's exactly the same with the same volume knob and the function keys and stuff. X, square, triangle, and O. I guess if you wanted to play Xbox or PlayStation with that, I don't know. They're nice. They're a little heavier than I actually would have particularly cared for. But again, you can get them with different, like the color, like this one being the Nebula Linear. I'm sure the Nebula relates to a actuation force, whether it equals to like 50 gram, 40 gram, 30 gram, whatever, right? So not bad. Okay, what else do we get here? Obviously, we get our braided USB-C to USB-A to USB-C adapter plug for your desk, and it's a fairly long cable too. Like some cables that come with keyboards it's exactly 1J wingspan. Anyway, some keyboard cables you get are pretty short. We get some additional foam here. We get some additional feet to keep it from sliding. We have some additional gold screws, exactly the same as the other K6. Here are the Windows keys that are the replacement keys for the option and the command key. Yeah, option and command. And then we get obviously our little tool set, our switch puller, and our key puller. And then over here is another adapter for USB-C to USB-A female, and it is wireless. I forgot to mention that. I have yet to get the wireless function to actually work on mine. I've not tried to make it wireless, I just leave it plugged in, but I wish there was a way to really allow you guys to feel the key switches. Fun fact, these things are available at Micro Center. This didn't come from Micro Center, but Micro Center has these all on display. So if you live near one, you can go and try it out. I have a feeling I might mistype on this at first because it takes a bit more force to push than expected. I haven't gone in and really programmed my keyboard or played with any of the like the polling rates and stuff, but I have been getting a little bit of bounce on this keyboard. And by bounce, it means one key press might give me 2 or 3 of the letter, or it's been spacebar specifically that's been giving me bounce. It's been getting kind of annoying. So I'll be typing an email or something and then I'm getting like double, triple spacing between words, which is getting kind of annoying. But you can actually go into the software and tune that out. I just haven't. So that's on me. Oh, speaking of spacebar. It's pretty dampened. All right, let's take off one of the keys here. Oops. We're gonna have to look into that. I think one of the screws might be loose. Could have happened in transit. Let's see. Let's go through and check the screws. Okay, they're all snug. So I guess we're gonna open it up and find out what's rattling in there, because that's not normal. There's legitimately something loose in there. Okay, I wasn't entirely sure if I was gonna actually do a teardown of this keyboard, but now we're gonna investigate. I figured out what it is. It's this switch. Yeah, the sound is resonating along the metal frame. So I was hearing it over here, but it's actually this. See if I touch them.
Yeah.
That's a little disappointing. Well, I'm still gonna take it apart because I already started. Just the battery, which is in here, by the way. See?
Oh, nice.
It's right there. Just the battery in the bottom cover is 1202. Is that like the same as this? Oh, this was like 1500, huh? Yeah, 1502. So the bottom cover is almost the whole weight of this keyboard right here. But I like how you can see here it has the foam material. Plus, when we lift up the cover for the battery, come on. It's like rubberized in the parts that touch, that matter. It's real thick. It's such a tiny battery though. Like you think it would have been something big, but I guess that would last a long time for a keyboard. Okay, so we have this isolator pad right here, which is again designed for making sure nothing gets shorted out on the backside. You can see we have the wireless antenna built in right here. It's interesting how we can see these are the backs of the LEDs technically. So they shine through the other way, but this is also a sound dampening material here. Here we have our cable to connect our PCB. And this is screwed down, isn't it? So let's see here. Oh, this feels like it should lift up.
You have to pull out the keycaps to remove it.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Okay, I'm not about to pull off all these keycaps. Hey, you know what? Here we go. Low profile edition. I mean, you could technically, as long as you're not shorting anything on the backside. Okay, but I wanted to see if there was a way to. Nope, there's not gonna be any way to silence that up. It wasn't making noise though when typing, so that's not at least a terrible problem. Okay, well, one thing I forgot to check before I tore this apart was whether or not I would need to even take it apart. Because one of the things I did here with my Q6 was I had an issue where you can still kind of see it, even though I put some foam in there. If you look at the corner, there's some flex, not so bad in the middle, and over here, flex. Because you see this whole PCB right here is pushing against this thing, and it can kind of flex and squish. So I added foam to the outsides to give a little bit more rigidity, but it still has a little bit of flex, which isn't a terrible problem, but just thought I would point that out. But I didn't check for how the flex is on this one. So let me put this back together and check, and we'll take a switch out. All right, so let's see if the keyboard compresses on the corners. Wow, that's like way more solid than that one actually. I have to push way harder to get it to flex down. Like this one, look at that. Look how much flex there is, and I'm not pushing that hard. Like I have to really push. This one, look at all that movement. I'm not pushing nearly as hard. This one I'm actually forcing. Look at that. See how much it moves?
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a look at the switch. I'm curious if it looks exactly like a normal key switch. Okay, so the magnet, there's a magnet down inside there, right?
Yeah.
Then the other magnet is here. Do you see it down in there? Do you see the actual magnet end?
Yeah.
The silver end of it? So there's no electronics in here. There's no pins that you have to worry about aligning. But there's no pins or electronics in here. It's literally just a spring with a stem and a magnet on the end of it, which you can see right there in the little silver bit. And then the sensor end is just down in there, reading how, once it gets close enough to activate based on the magnet level that it expects to see, that activates the switch. And then the LED is that white square just shining up through the plastic underneath. Because you can see underneath right there at the top, there's what looks like a little kind of a plastic lens. That's just where the LED shines through. Last but not least, let's talk about pricing, because this is not going to be a cheap type of tech versus a standard mechanical switch. So the Keychron Q6HE looks like we're at $229. You can have it for as low as $199 to $219 depending on where you get it from. So it's $175 on Keychron's, $396 on Newegg? No, I don't think so. So yeah, right around the $200 price point. So it's about a $30 premium over something like this. And then, it's just so weird. It just feels so different. I don't know how to explain it. All right, anyway, there we go. I think I've babbled on long enough about a keyboard. This is where you guys sound off. I'm curious if anyone else is running Hall effect switches or keyboards, how they like them, what's the price point been like. I think $229, although, yeah, it's kind of pricey for a keyboard. I know a lot of people are like, I would never spend that much on a keyboard. But it's like one of those things, once you experience the quality of a nice, solid keyboard, it's really hard to go back. Like this feels pretty gross, like right now. Here's the crazy part about the K10. On its own, if you didn't have anything else to compare to it, it's a nice typing experience. It really is. And it's like, I think we got these for what, $99, I think it was. It was a $99 keyboard, $89, somewhere around there at Micro Center. It's not bad. Sounds a little chunky, if you will. Almost sounds like a clicky key, but it's not. You're just hearing the actual switch bottom out. There's no dampening material, no damping on the bottom of the switch. But then, you know, it's that margarine. And then this one's more like cream cheese. Whatever that means. In fact, Nick was just saying he thinks that with the Hall effect keyboards on the software for this, you can fine tune where the actuation point is. On a mechanical switch,
that springs.
Yeah, that's where the contact happens is where the contact happens. But on these, you can either up or lower the sensitivity to when it recognizes how close the magnet is. So you can make the actuation more at the top, more in the middle, or more in the bottom. I don't know if it's going to be a range or if it's like a low, medium, high type of setting. But that's one of the benefits too to magnetic switches is they are customizable in that way. So it's kind of like getting, although you can't change the actuation weight, you can change the actuation point. So that's kind of a nice effect of Hall effect. That's why it's called the Hall effect. So before we get out of here, we should at least do kind of a performance test here. I am not a very fast typist nor an accurate typist, but Bert, this is me testing out the new keyboard and it feels very nice. It's my face. Okay, so let's look at this. The software is weird. It's actually a web page to control the software, but you can control the actuation point of the switch. So I don't think I would personally want it to be too high, otherwise you could get a lot of extra key presses that you're maybe not intending to do. Okay, so you actually just go to launcher.keychron.com and click connect. There it is, it recognizes our keyboard, the Keychron Q6HE. Once it establishes a full connection, I can click connect. Well, I can click on it, click connect. And then this is where we can change the lighting and all that stuff. It's actually done through a web page, which is kind of crazy. So here's our keyboard. Oh, okay, so you can set your actuation distance, the trigger, and then how far up the key must go before it won't trigger again. So I guess that'd be kind of nice. Like if you want to make it really shallow, like I want a, let's say a 0.5 millimeter actuation point, but you can make it that the key has to rebound all the way to the top before it would register again. So that way if you're typing and you're kind of floating the keys, then it may not register any of those extra touches because it has to come all the way to the top. So you can actually fine tune where you want that to be. Okay, so you can select a key and then be like, you know what, okay, spacebar. This will demo the spacebar and show you, right? So you can see right there, you can't get that with the mechanical switch because it's either activated or not activated. But because it's a Hall effect, you can see exactly how much movement there is. So you can see that this is a 4 millimeter actually, like there's a 4 millimeter travel, okay? It takes 2 millimeters to activate right now. And that's why I said it felt like it was about halfway. So for a keyboard noob, I'm impressed with myself that I was able to tell that. Okay, so I want to set all key triggers, so select all of them. So you can see now each individual key you can set separately what you want the activation point is. So maybe you want WASD to be more sensitive in some way. You can do that, so you could actually set those differently. But yeah, the Hall effect stuff's pretty freaking awesome. The fact that you can go in here and fine tune it. Okay, so that's setting the actuation points and per key and groups of keys and all that, that's fine. But there's also, you'll see here, gamepad analog. If you've ever had a Hall effect gaming pad for like Xbox or PC or whatever, I can tell you Phil loves his because the Xbox controllers, man, they're planned obsolescence. Those things start wearing out after like a few months, honestly, if you use them any length of time. I had spares in my desk because of Rocket League, just because I was breaking them because I got angry, not because they suck, but they did suck. But anyway, so you can actually set up keys to be mapped to controller inputs. So if you wanted to, you could technically use your keyboard, in this instance, the Q6HE, as your controller. Now, you might be asking yourself, why? Why would you want to do that? Well, I don't know many people are gonna like suddenly run out and start playing like Call of Duty and stuff on this, but if you've ever done flight simulators or racing simulators, and you've ever like tried to actually be smooth, it'll kind of smooth out the motion for you, but it only knows actuated, non-actuated, or on, off on the switch. You couldn't modulate how much you would turn the throttle. So you were constantly like tapping, holding, tap, tap, tap. Or in the older games, you just see the wheels like flail around like crazy as you're going left, right. So if you go into gamepad analog mode, these are all of the different buttons that you would find on like an Xbox controller. L is left stick, R is right stick. So anyway, right now we just have WASD mapped to left stick, and the right arrow keys mapped to right stick. So if you look at this, if you look at the little joystick effect demo here, I can actually, because of the fact that we have Hall effect here, look at that, I can actually get this to do circles if I try hard enough. There we go, whee! Anyway, so as you can see, we get almost like an infinite range of in between. Okay, anyway, so for simulators, this makes a whole lot of sense, obviously. If you wanted to use it in a shooter, I mean, you could. I personally wouldn't. We were just talking about the fact that you could use more precision movement this way. Like you could control walking speed, like walk faster or slower, depending. I mean, most games you only notice if you're doing mouse and keyboard, forward is full forward, so you full walking speed, and then if you're toggling or hold for run or sprint, then you would hold shift or whatever it is. But apparently you could slow down your movements if the game supports both keyboard and controller simultaneously. A lot of games do support that now these days, but I would have to imagine like if it wasn't a keyboard, that means somebody's holding a controller in one hand and a mouse in the other, which would be so weird. But you know what? If it can do it, there's probably someone out there that does it that way. So another neat function about this, though, is the fact that usually this type of feature is reserved for very high-end keyboards, because that's typically the only price range that you would find Hall effect switches. So there you go. I mean, obviously it's more than just a keyboard. Now, it's also a controller. That's what I'm gonna call it a day. It's gonna take some time for me to kind of get used to the keyboard, I think, but I'm really getting kind of interested in this sort of stuff. I mean, with so much of the industry being kind of crap, it's kind of nice now to play around with things I don't normally mess with. So normally I wouldn't do keyboard videos, but I'm enjoying it. Even though they get low viewership, I think it's an interesting topic because we interact with that the most outside the mouse on our keyboard. So sound off down below what kind of keyboard you're using. Do you think Hall effect's a gimmick? Do you think it's a neat aspect to be able to have full customization over your keyboard? Or are you just still using the free $10 membrane mushy thing that came with your pre-built? I don't know, maybe you're okay with that. And maybe if you're okay with that, you should never experience something like this, because you might realize just how unokay with that you actually are. But that's me assuming, and I'm making an ass out of you and me. Actually, mostly just me, but that's fine. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I'll put links to the keyboards down below if you're interested in those. Yeah, I'm not converted yet, but I'm seeing the light.